Chapter 7, Boxer and the Black Hand. On October 2nd, 1984, Boxer Enriquez graduated to Folsom Prison. In those days, Folsom was seen as the end of the road for convicts. Singer Johnny Cash had it right when he wrote, "Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay." Legendary for its toughness, it was an environment that was totally unforgiving, no place for the timid or weak, and a rough place even for seasoned cons. That didn't bother Boxer, who was becoming a hard and proven camarada, a man to be feared and an enforcer. He sat back on a chair in the big yard at the receiving and release area of the prison, waiting to be processed in, bullshitting with other inmates, taking a big drag off his non-filtered Camel, looking real tough. Suddenly at 3 o'clock sharp, a huge steam horn, the work whistle, blasted the air like an atomic cannon. Boom! Boxer nearly fell off his chair. It scared the hell out of him and everyone around him. But he was supposed to be tough. Instead, he was embarrassed. The noise shattered his cool as ice image. It got worse after that. A few hours later, he was sent to administrative segregation, a high security unit known by other inmates as Fish Row. Boxer's violent reputation at DVI Tracy had not gone unnoticed by those who made CDC housing arrangements. As he walked into that area, a Norteño gang member just released from the section lunged at him from behind and plunged a dinner fork into the back of his neck. They were strangers to each other, but the Norteño attacked him after noticing Boxer's tattoos, which marked him as an enemy from Southern California. Being involved in a rival gang skirmish his first day, Boxer was then taken to an even more restricted lockup called Security Housing Unit 2, or SHU 2. There, from inside his cell, he met the legendary Mexican Mafia godfather, Joe Morgan, known as Peg Leg, who was at the height of his power and influence in the mob. Morgan was reputedly good for at least a dozen murders. On his own and engineered dozens more. There was also the infamous Alfred "Alfie" Sosa, 5 foot 3 inches tall and 120 pounds, but arguably one of the most prolific murderers in MA history. Alfie was sick. His lust for blood went over and beyond the call of La M duty, and fellow members would jokingly accuse him of achieving multiple orgasms following an execution. And there was Raymond Wedoshai Shraya, whose loyalty and enthusiasm for carrying out the most heinous of crimes had made him a Morgan favorite. A half dozen years earlier, Wedoshai and 6 other mafiosos were arrested in connection with 10 murders. Boxer estimated, however, that Wedoshai is responsible for as many as 100 hits. Along with Morgan, Wedoshai was one of the few white guys in La M, and many felt that because of that, he killed more readily to prove his worth. One law enforcement source described him as a murderous fool. Boxer said, "While in jail, several times I saw Shy break into a cold, clammy sweat. Shy called man down so the guards would take him to the infirmary. He thought he was having a heart attack, but I believe he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, from all the violence he's seen." 11 years older than Boxer, Wedoshai was also a homeboy from Artesia 13. They all conversed primarily by passing kites to each other, from cell to cell, throwing out fishing lines with notes attached. 10 years later, when it was determined that he had been a victim in the fork attack, not the aggressor, Boxer was reclassified by prison administrators and shipped to a mainline housing. "I was merely an unfortunate victim. The one time I was victimized in prison." On a fluke, his new cellmate was Sammy Villalba, known as Negro. He was 6 years older than Boxer, intellectually challenged but street smart, and also from Artesia 13. Sammy used to roll with Boxer's older brother Mark, and he was also a heroin addict who had been in and out of jail since he was a kid. He was no stranger to the weight pile, and his fully tattooed upper body was pumped from his frequent use of jailhouse barbells. He and Boxer knew each other from the neighborhood, and as they talked freely, it turned out that Negro was a camarada too. In fact, he was the mafia representative in that cell block, and on the fast track to full membership. It was a time of race riots at Folsom and San Quentin. There were major conflicts. There were major conflicts. There were major conflicts between blacks and browns, sparked by an MA hit on a BGF, Black Guerrilla Family, soldier at San Quentin. Daniel Vasquez, who started his 10-year tenure as warden at San Quentin in late 1983, says, "There were 600 shots fired by guards because of yard violence during my first 6 months on the job. I stopped counting inmate stabbings and assaults at 250 about a year after I arrived. Folsom was no different." As part of that environment, Negro told Boxer, "We're getting ready to get down." "Yeah, I'm game," Boxer agreed. "Let's go. Let's do this." The next day, Negro was transferred back to the SHU, but before he left, he gave Boxer a knife, pointed out the 2 targets, and ordered him to do the hit himself. The tier was filled with black inmates, and Boxer would have to walk past most of them to get to the other end of the tier to do the hit. And then he had to make it back to his cell, again walking past all the black inmates after attempting to kill 2 of them. He said to himself, "Oh man, this is terrible." Then he got a wire telling him that Weasel from Venice was next to him on the tier and that he would help. Suddenly, there was an announcement that all inmates in their section were going to be brought out together for a controlled shower. He looked across to Weasel and said, "Listo? Ready." "Yeah, okay." Boxer was dressed only in shower shoes and boxer shorts. He had a brutal looking shiv made out of aluminum, 2 inches wide, a 1/4 inch thick, double-edged razor-sharp blade made in the prison industry shop. It was wrapped up in his towel, and it was so big that it stuck out of the end of the roll. The cell door racked open, and as luck would have it, the main target was walking right past Boxer, but a couple of correctional officers were right there too, and a guard with a Mini 14 assault rifle was standing on a catwalk, just a stone's throw away. Boxer was nervous, his hands shaking and adrenaline pumping. Anyone who says they're not scared to do these things is pretty much lying. You're going to take a human life and might get shot yourself in the process. There was also the pending reality that he would move up the mafia ladder by killing people. He had the sign of the cross. This was the devil's work, but a side deal with God wasn't a bad idea. Then Boxer stepped out of his cell, grabbed the handle of the knife tightly, and plunged the hard silver metal deep into the black soft skin. There was an ooze of red as the victim ran down the tier. Quickly, he swiped the knife at the second black enemy. Whom he didn't even know, and only scratched his arm. Whoosh! He felt the live round from the guard's rifle go right past his ear, threw his knife to the floor, and squatted down in a small group of white guys trying to blend in with them. He could see the first victim, lying on his stomach at the end of the tier, get up and stumble to an officer's desk seeking help. He made it to the prison hospital and lived. Boxer and Weasel were approached. Boxer and Weasel were apprehended by descending guards within seconds. It didn't matter, he was elevated. It's an accomplishment. You feel a raw sense of power, inflicting violence on someone for the organization. You did it and got away with it, and you're pumped with adrenaline. You're like, yeah. He was shipped back to the hole, where he joined nearly a couple dozen notorious MA members. There was Peg Leg Morgan, Rocky Luna, Cherillo Grajeda. He put in work for Grajeda at DVI, but had never even met him. There was Jesse Pelon Moreno, Angel Valencia, Corwin Sloppy Elmore, and Wedo Shy and Black Dan, who would become his mentors. All of them embraced him as a soldado, a camarada. They gave him things, dope, cigarettes, food, toiletries, anything he needed. This, he thought, is cool. Boxer and his type A personality fit in nicely at Folsom after all, like his friend Sammy Negro Villalba. He was on the fast track. I was like a pistolero with notches on my gun, a doer. Inmates on the yard knew it. That's how prison works. Boxer learned that quickly. Unfortunately, in the prison world, it is violence that's our status mobility system. We move up the ladder by whacking people, and that's how you progress towards membership in La M. Black Dan Barella and Wedo Shai Shrayak started coming by Boxer's cell, giving him haircuts and talking. sizing him up and grooming him for a life in the mafia. They had decided that Boxer was their kind of man, someone who would kill for Emmett without hesitation. However, there was a hitch to finalizing his membership in the Brotherhood. Members were discouraged from recruiting candidates who came from the same gang neighborhood where they grew up. There was always a paranoia in the mob about a carnal surrounding himself with his own homeboys, creating a loyal following that could give him too much power in the organization. Güero, Shy, shut up. Güero Shy, like Boxer, was from Artesia. Black Dan was from White Fence, where Boxer had a slew of relatives. So they came up with a plan to find another sponsor, or padrino, for Boxer. They picked Corwin Elmore of Clanton, aka Sloppy. Sloppy was glad to do it. He was a Mohawk Indian known for his ability and willingness to kill. But as far as Boxer was concerned, that was his only attribute. Sloppy was an overweight, 5'4" brutish caveman type who was a walking billboard for bad hygiene. He was always dirty and unshaven with boogers hanging from his nostrils, a white flaky substance caked up around his mouth, uncombed hair, and breath that could melt the paint off a wall. Man, that sounds just like fucking Lanchita. Other mafiosi would take the yard in the morning, well trimmed and with pressed shorts, assuming a posture of leadership. Corwin Elmore was, well, sloppy. He was gross, said Boxer, and he always repulsed me. However, Sloppy had one redeeming quality, loyalty. As Joe Morgan would hang up his prosthetic leg and take a shower out in the yard, Sloppy always walked over and stood bodyguard with his arms folded across his chest, letting no one come near the de facto godfather. It was as if he were the yard dog protecting his owner. Morgan seemed to get a kick out of it. Boxer frequently played pinochle with Morgan, Black Dan, and a newly made brother named Mariano Chuy Martinez of Barrio Estrada Nuevo, VNE, just 4 years older than Boxer. Chuy in late years would become a major mafia figure in his own right and a loyal Enriquez ally. Boxer noticed that Morgan cheated at cards, but he never mentioned it to anyone. He went on walks with mob bosses when they got out on the Shoe 2 yard. His name for months was floated around to tell the other MM members at Folsom. His name for months was floated around to all the other MM members at Folsom and to any other carnales who could be reached elsewhere. One no vote was an automatic veto of any candidate who was courted for La MM membership. Then, in the spring of 1985, it happened. Boxer was sitting in his cell babysitting. Boxer was sitting in his cell babysitting a batch of jailhouse wine he'd made for the brothers to drink. Other inmates were coming in from the yard and locking it up in their cells so the guards could take the daily count. Amid the echoing sound of clanging cell doors, he heard Chorrillo Grajeda call out to him, "Hey Rene, stick your mirror out." At the time, prisoners were allowed to have little handheld mirrors for personal grooming needs, so Boxer held his mirror out through the bars to see Chorrillo in his cell down the road. He was sticking his open hand out into the aisle, and he said, "You see this? That's you now." He meant the black hand, mano negra, la palma negra. The brothers on the yard had just voted him into the Mexican Mafia. I felt like I just won the gold medal at the Olympic Games. I had, in my mind, arrived, reached the pinnacle in my life. I was now a mafioso. Rene Boxer Enriquez was 21 years old. Months later, he would have the signature life-size black hand tattooed on his chest with a small unpainted M for the Mafia left in the middle of the palm. There was no formal induction ceremony. The next time everyone was released from Shoe 2 to the yard, which happened 3 days a week, more than 24 carnales took turns shaking his hand and embracing him. "Bienvenidos," they said. "Tu eres carnal. Welcome, you are a brother." Güero Shy took him aside and laid out the rules. Number 1, a member may not be a homosexual. Number 2, a member may not be an informant or rat. Number 3, a member may not be a coward. Number 4, A member must not raise his hand against another member without sanction. Number 5. A member must not show disrespect for any member's family, including sex with another member's wife or girlfriend. Number 6. A member must not steal from another member. Number 7. A member must not interfere with another member's business activities. Number 8. A member must not politic against another member or cause dissension within the organization. Number 9. Membership is for life. Number 10. It's mandatory to assault, kill all defectors, dropouts. Number 11. The M comes first, even before your own family. Over time, Boxer would realize that the rules were broken all the time, and La M wasn't quite the brotherhood he thought it would be. Everyone was supposed to be equal, but Boxer was soon to learn that they weren't.